It is 4:30 p.m. on this Thursday, November the 18th, 1971. I'm going to transfer from very small tapes the recordings of talks I had with a Mr. Geoffrey Coulter, who lives in Beachfield House, Strand Road, Sutton, County Dublin. The first of the re-recordings of the small tapes, the first is one made in May, on May the 9th, 1971, and the other several small tapes are re-recordings made on October the 18th and for several days after 1971. Mr. Coulter came for a very short time, as will be seen in the re-recordings, in May 1971, and then he wrote on the 11th of October from Sutton to say that he would be with me on Monday the 18th of October. The letter card, which was written on the 11th of October from his home, said, "Dear Louis, subject to your approval, I'll travel to Monaghan on Monday the 18th by the Letterkenny Express bus, arriving DV at 11:20 p.m. in Monaghan. My travel pass won't be valid over the border, so I'd be grateful if you could pick me up there. Let me know if you can. Do not hesitate, Father, to tell me if you'd rather I'd postpone my visit till the spring of next year, but I'm getting no younger. The bus stops at a terminus where I could await you. Slán agus Banach, Geoffrey." Well, accordingly, I went on Monday the 18th of October, and there was the splendid figure of Geoffrey in the front seat of the bus, and then I took him by car back here. As it happened on that particular day, the military were blowing up unapproved roads near here, and we were back here at home to hear the explosions. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to record them. And then in the evening, the local people from North Monaghan and even from around here went and filled in the crater that the military had blown in the road. They did so with a certain amount of cheek and sang-froid, and then to crown their cheek, they paraded over the road that they had filled in and came into the town here and made a circuit of the town and then back over the unapproved road that they had, where they had undone the work the military had done earlier in the day. On Tuesday the 19th of October, it was a bright October day, I took Geoffrey in the car down that little unapproved road and photographed Geoffrey standing in the middle of what had been a crater 24 hours before. He was very thrilled at getting this picture. Then we came back and had our dinner, and I took him then to Benburb and showed him the ruins of the castle there, and then into Armagh, where I showed him the two cathedrals, and then back home here. And the following day I took him to 5 Mile Town, where he had been born, and photographed him there in front of the Northern Bank, which had been his father's home, where the father was manager of the bank there. I showed him, brought him to Carlton's cottage. That's not far from Oher, Carlton being the writer. And then we came back and we recorded his reminiscences. Well, on this November 18th, a month after his being here, I decided the best thing was to put them on this long play 7-inch reel, all these small tapes. So beginning now with the small tape that I made on the 9th of May 1971, and it will explain itself, and then the others will follow. I should add here also that the photographs that I took, they came out very well, and I sent copies to Geoffrey, who in turn wrote thanking me for my hospitality, and then he was very thrilled to get the photographs. I think that's all. Since that time, the road in question has been blown up several times and refilled several times, and the battle still goes on. It's a battle of wits rather than a military affair. Well, now we're transferring all the small tapes onto this reel.
What time would you be here, son?
Well, I'm in Monaghan.
Oh, you're in Monaghan?
Yeah.
Well, what will I go for you?
No, I settled up from here.
How about I'll go for you with pleasure? I'll leave you back there if you have to go back there this evening.
What's that?
What time? Where are you in Monaghan? I'll go for you.
No, you never find a way. It's a farmhouse. Listen, I'll be over with. How long will it take me to get there, McKellar?
No, but look here, I prefer to go for you, and then there's no point in, if you tell me at a point where you could be. Sure, I know Monaghan as well as you.
Yeah. Well, it's a disappointment.
Pardon?
It's a disappointment.
Or Monaghan town?
Yeah.
Well, just in the square. And when you see a car, my number, the car number is 171 VZ. 1.
171.
V for victory.
Yeah.
V is Z.
Yeah. Well, hold on a moment to take that down.
Yeah. Hello.
When would you be there from?
I'll start off now and I'll be there in a quarter of an hour.
In a quarter of an hour? Good work. Right to order. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Good work.
Correction at this point. It's May the 9th, 1971, not 1970. The 9th of May, 1970. And here in my home in Auchnacloy, I'm very pleased to have as my guest Mr. Geoffrey Coulter. Where do you live in Dublin, please?
Beachfield House,
Oh, I have it in your letter, that's right.
Land Road, Sutton.
I see. You were born in 1900.
I was born in 1900 in the Northern Bank House, 5 Mile Town, Hastings Road.
Yeah. And your father was?
My father was manager of the bank.
Yeah, but his name was?
Matthew Thomas Colt.
Matthew Thomas Coulter. And your mother's maiden name
My
was?
mother's maiden name was Ager, Isabella Ager.
From where?
From Castlewell, Saturday.
Today. And your father was a native of?
Kilcleese.
And you're telling me there about, as a young boy, there was an old castle at Kilcleese.
There was an old castle at Kilcleese.
Yeah.
And my father took me there to look at it.
Yeah.
And it had been turned into a mill.
Yeah.
And the proprietor showed us over it. And then he looked down at me and he pointed up to the ramparts.
Yeah.
And he said, he said, we used to hang coulters from those ramparts.
I see. Well, then, probably the Coulters were Scottish, were they?
No, the coulters claimed descent from Coulter MacCucker,
Oh, I see. Very good.
who built Rathkelter just outside Downtown.
Very good. Yes, that's good now.
He was one of the Rembrandts.
This is what I tell you. I'm going to go back to get the genealogy. And the decency's there. Well, you were born 1900,
I was born in 1900.
and did you go to the national school there, or the?
No, I was sent to a boarding school at Galway
What age?
at the age of 11.
But had you been to school before 11?
No, I just went with a number of other boys and girls to have lessons from the schoolmaster.
Oh, I see. Well, have you any reminiscences of the schools around there at the time?
I haven't, except that the Protestants and Catholics went to the same school.
So did I.
So
did I.
There's no complaint about
No, I know, yeah.
many directions. And actually, there was a Miss Colgan, a retired Catholic school teacher, sold school books and things. Many a time I used to drop into her shop and talk to her.
Yeah.
And she would always, she would very often give me some reader that she got as a sample, you know, that she didn't want.
Well, then in the school in Dalkey, that's where you went.
Yeah.
Well, now.
Well, that was a very expensive job, but aimed at making little
Gentlemen.
yeah, it aimed at preparing us for English public schools.
I see.
And the idea was that we would get exhibitions or scholarships.
Well, you went at the age of 11 there.
Yeah.
Are there any other members of your family?
No,
You were an only child.
I was an only child.
I see.
But another interesting thing to that mention, I suppose, is that two of my first cousins, Willie Morton and Tom Morton, of Hollywood County Down. Willie Morton would actually have been my guardian if anything happened to my father.
I see.
And those two went on the ship to Hamburg to get their arms for the Ulster Volunteers.
That is very interesting.
And when the stokers struck for higher wages on the way back, they stoked the ship.
I see. Well, now, have you any reminiscences of the landing, or hearing about the landing of arms of the UVF?
Yes, we were all wakened up by the traffic going past the house in 5 Mile Town.
Yeah.
There was a constant noise of motor cars going by
Yes.
for about, for I suppose, about half an hour.
But naturally, as a boy, you didn't know what was on.
Well, we knew it once.
Oh, you would. Well, there weren't so very many motor cars, first of all, at the time.
No.
But then you would have known about it, presumably.
Well, we knew it once because the word went all around the town and everybody was shouting about what it was.
Well, that was 1913.
Yeah,
Well, then you were home on holidays, were you, from school? You went at 11 years of age to Dalkey.
yeah,
There was 1911 you
yeah.
went
Well, I
there.
must have been home on holiday.
Yes, it was in that time of the year. And then I remember seeing UVF drilling
Yeah.
and seeing them on horses and all. Did you see the UVF around there too?
But the strange thing is, I don't remember seeing the UBS. I remember seeing the yeomanry, but I don't remember seeing the UBS.
Isn't that strange? Well, they weren't called yeomanry, well. I remember we called them the militia.
Well, there was one called yeomanry at 5 Mile Town, because I remember that Johnny Shaw, the auctioneer, was the officer in charge of them, and was a very dashing figure.
What's his name again?
Yeah, Johnny Shaw.
Shaw, I see. Well, now, that was 1913.
Yeah.
But the school then in Dalkey was to make you suitable to get to Eton or somewhere, I
Yeah,
suppose.
yeah.
Well, how long did you remain in Dalkey?
Till 1914.
I see.
when I got a advisorship to Russell School in Lancashire, which was a very inferior grade of public school, but one to which quite a number of Irish boys went, including a couple of sons of our Northern Back rector, you see.
Yes.
And including a couple of boys named Shillington, who I am sure must be related to
Major Shillington.
Yeah.
Yes, I know. Well, now, the war in 1914 intervened.
Yeah.
Presumably you were brought back anyway.
I was brought back in towards the end of 1916.
Oh, you remained in the school in Lancashire.
Yeah, I was brought back towards the age of 1916 because my parents were afraid the ship would be torpedoed.
Yes. Well, you come back here, and as I asked you there before I asked you made a record, what are your reminiscences of 1916? You can tell them again.
Well, I was at home for holidays,
Yeah.
and on the Easter Monday 1916, there was a concert in the Parochial Hall in the Protestant Parochial Hall
Yeah.
to raise funds to pay off the debt on that hall.
Yeah.
And the concert party, it included Major Brian Cooper and some other officers from Enniskillen.
Yes.
And towards the end of the concert, Major Cooper jumped up on the platform and held up his hand for silence and said, I have a very serious announcement to make. There has been an uprising in the south, as it is reported that the Germans have landed.
Yes.
So I will ask everybody to go home quietly and to load their firearms if they have any and lock their doors.
Yes. So everybody did as you were told, I presume. Well, any other incidents at that period?
During the next few days, we learned that two men of a local family, the Hackett's,
Oh, yes, I
had
had
gone
that.
to Carrickmore
That's right.
to answer the call for mobilization.
Oh, you had heard that, although you weren't. How would you have heard that, so to speak?
Mary Hackett
Yeah.
was my nurse when I was very wee.
Oh, very interesting. Yes.
Paddy Hackett was my father's gardener.
Yes.
And the other two brothers always worked for him in the summers cutting the hay.
I see.
So everybody heard about it.
I see.
And after a suitable lapse of time, they came back and nothing more was ever said.
Oh, no. Well, they weren't arrested. No, they weren't.
They weren't.
No.
Their house was the one house. On the 12th of July, you see, there were arches across the
I
street,
know,
and
yes.
many houses hung out flags.
Yes, I know.
But the Hackett's and their little two-story house always hung out a great big green flag with the heart, but without the cross.
Yes, I know. But they wouldn't do that on the 12th, though.
Huh?
They wouldn't do it on the 12th.
It did.
Well, that was really a good training exercise.
Nobody ever said a word to the Hackett's.
Isn't that remarkable?
All to Morgan College in those
It
days.
shows the good fellowship that was in Five Man Time. I remember you telling me in your letter that the Father O'Kane was the parish priest there that time
that's
too.
right. That's right.
But he was no relative of mine. I had a granduncle, a priest, but he was in Derry Diocese. That's the diocese of Clogher. Well, 1916. Well, afterwards you would have heard about it. It was like the Grand Old Duke of York, the march to Cool Island, and the march them back again. I remember hearing about Archie Heron.
Yeah.
He went from Belfast to Cool Island also.
Yes. And Nora Connolly went up from Dublin.
She did. Have you any... There's a terrible mystery somewhere or other about the current demanding over there. And where, you see, the Tyrone, the Belfast volunteers went to Coal Island, and according to instructions, they were to go to aid Liam Mellows in the west.
And they were to avoid combat on the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seemed a stupid thing to tell them to go to Coal Island and march all the way past Inniskill and home and all like that, instead of taking the train. If they're going to,
that's a fact.
but they go along, and then comes Dr. McCartan and Nora Connolly, and they didn't know where they were coming or going, and as a result, they went home again.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure you would have heard afterwards about the terrible debacle that was Coal Island, you know.
Well, the way it reached me and my union assessment there was that
Yes,
we had been spared a terrible threat
is that right?
because there was about 600 heavily armed men had collected on the mountains,
Yes,
ready to descend upon us.
yes. Oh, yes, the mountains near 5 Mile Time.
Yeah. You see, the funny thing is that there had been several scares in my boyhood about attacks on the town, but the attacks were always said to be coming from the Long Hollow.
And what is the Long Hollow?
The Long Hollow is between Cooneen and Rosslane.
Oh, yes, the Quinine Ghost. You hear that? Very good, well.
On 2 or 3 occasions, a scare story came round that the Fenians were collecting in the Long Hollow and were going to come down and massacre the Protestants in 5 Mile Town.
It was like that poem, The Fenians Will Get You, come in.
Yeah,
Remember? She's buried in Oma, isn't she, the poetess?
Yeah, and the smelly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they still had that feeling that they were going to be massacred.
Yeah.
Well, was there any military or police activity that you can remember? You were 16 years of age.
Well, there was no activity whatever in 5 Mile Town.
Now, what I mean, activity to prevent any attack, no? You
No.
can't remember.
No, there was none. I mean, there were at 5 Mile Town actually only 3 men who would have been considered likely
The
to
Fenians.
an old Fenian and the 2 Hackett brothers.
And who was the old Fenian?
The old Fenian was Martin Colgan,
Colgan.
a butcher.
I see.
And everybody in the town, without exception, regarded him with the highest
Oh, you told me,
respect. Yeah.
largely because of his demeanor as well
Yeah,
as anything
he
else.
was a very dignified man and a very honourable man in
Yeah.
every department of life.
So they respected his
Yeah.
politics. And the Hacketts evidently were respected also.
Hmm?
The Hacketts must have been
The
respected
Hackett's
as
were
well.
respected also. Well, people knew that if the Hackett's were doing anything, they'd do it openly.
I see. Well, then, that was 1916.
Yeah.
You're back from England. Did you continue your studies then?
When I came back from England,
Yes.
I continued my studies later in Dublin.
Oh, yes. You went to Trinity then, did you?
I went to Trinity, yeah.
And got a BA honours,
Yeah.
which is, you were contemplating medicine.
I was.
I'm sorry you didn't continue. I said that to you there.
Well, I'm sorry I didn't too.
Uh-huh.
But, of course, even then it was a different, of course.
It would have been, yeah. Well, then, before I go from your boyhood days in 5 Mile Time, who else were in the bank, in the Northern Bank that time?
Well, now, that's what I
You
find
can't remember.
very hard to remember.
Oh, you
I mean, at any particular time.
Uh-huh. Well, was it fresh in the memory of your father and other Northern Bank employees the Newton Stewart murder?
glass was
Ah,
that?
glass.
Yeah, it was. It was often talked about.
It was.
And another thing that was fresh in memory was a man named Fee.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
As far as I can recollect, Fee was actually, for some reason, brought through the town on one occasion.
Well, perhaps their size code.
Yeah, that's good.
Yes, it would be. Their size might have been in Enniskillen rather than Omagh or
Yeah.
Monaghan. Probably they changed the venue.
Yeah.
Was
Well,
that-
I remember as a very small child being brought to the window to look out
Yeah.
at a sidecar going back with Fee, going by with Fee on it, and constabulary escort.
I see.
Yeah.
Wasn't it remarkable, both of us can say this, how those things were talked about and talked about.
And I
So much.
remember, of course, the Cooney Oldfield talk.
Yes. That was Sam Hannah Bell, I think it is,
Yeah.
and does for BBC, dramatised that. It's a most hair-raising affair, that one.
Yeah.
What was the story about it locally? Was it given credibility?
Oh, it was given a great deal of credibility.
Yes. And was there something supra in it, you think?
Well, it appears to have been that phenomenon known as the poltergeist. I don't know what it
Yes,
was.
poltergeist, yeah, I know.
But it would be very hard to say there aren't poltergeists in it.
I know, but they seemed to follow the family to America.
Yeah.
That was the strange
Well,
thing
they
about it.
always seem to follow some young person.
Yes.
I tell you, there were poltergeists in annoying John Wesley's family at one time.
Was there? But now, any other things of whenever you were younger, they probably were the same as we had. What games did one play then?
Oh, Five-Man Town. When I was born, it was quite an athletic centre.
Was it?
Although that died out with
Yes.
apparently with a sort of generation. Of it.
Yes.
I think the South African War, in fact,
Oh, yes.
put an end to it.
I see, yes.
But I remember, I've seen photographs when my father was on the cricket, he was in the cricket club,
Yes.
the water polo club,
I see, yes.
and the soccer club,
Yes, I know.
as well as belongs to the hunt.
I know. Well, then, it was while in England, you told me, that you were lonely, and you
Yeah.
read John Bull's Other Island.
I did.
And this gave you to see that you had a country of your own.
It did. A thing which had been worrying me a bit, you know,
Had it?
because I didn't feel English,
No.
and I knew that a lot of people, including my father, didn't think much of English.
Yes.
And I knew there was an Irish language page going on.
Ah, well, this is interesting then, to find out, was there, then as you were, let's say, in Dublin, did you have any knowledge of the Gaelic League that was then established?
When I came to Dublin,
Yes.
no, I hadn't.
Did you not even know of its existence?
I didn't know its existence until I came to Dublin.
Uh-huh.
Well,
Well,
I had heard my father often talking about the old people that spoke Irish when
Yes.
they came into Patrick Square.
Saturday, it was still extant.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. But there was none of that in Five Mile Town, it became. There was no Gaelic speakers.
No,
No, not that you'd have known anyway.
the last of them that I heard of were Annalong.
I see, yes. And was it an Annalong?
It was an Annalong, and I heard my uncle, William Morton, often speak of the Gaelic speakers and Rathlin.
Oh, yes. Well, then, in Dublin, that was, you were then, say, 18, was it?
I was then 18 years.
The war ended.
Hmm.
What was the attitude of Trinity then to the early days of Sinn Féin, 2 years after the rebellion?
There was the attitude of the professorial body was not bad.
I see, yeah. Was Mahaffey there then, was it?
Mahaffey was there, but he was very old.
I know, yeah.
And we started the Thomas Davis Society.
Very good.
And,
And by we, who do you mean we?
well, Sean and Donald Bowman,
Yes.
Charlie Rowe, who
It was the Queen's Counsellor later, was from Dundalk, was it?
Charlie Rowe, no, he was a mathematical fellow.
Oh, I see. Sorry. Well,
Yeah.
and who else?
Tom Hilliard from Killarney.
Yes.
Yeah. Walker Smiley from Sligo.
Yes.
A fellow named Doris from Sligo.
Yes.
Well, those are the ones. Oh, yeah. John Lyle Donaghy from Larne.
John Lyle Donaghy.
Yeah,
Yes.
his father was a moderator of the Presbyterian Church.
Very good. Uh-huh.
And Robert Wilson from Coleraine, whose father was a Presbyterian minister.
Yeah.
And Tom McCreevy, who
Dublin Opinion was.
has recently been demobilised from the Royal Artillery.
Oh, I see.
And Dermot McManus late off the Enniskillen Dragoons. Those are the
These
ones.
were the ones.
Ah.
Thomas Davis.
Yeah.
Well, would they be the nucleus from which is now the very virile Trinity, Irish Trinity Historical Society? You know, it's a very, 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 very alive society now in Trinity. Irish history, almost Sinn Féin indeed.
Yes, well, they would be the forerunners of
I know what it is.
There was the Thomas Davis Society, and later there was the Republican Club.
Yeah.
And
But not in your time, it wouldn't have
No,
been a
not
Republican
my
club.
time.
No, it couldn't be.
young Hilliard, he died fighting for the Spanish Republicans.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Smiley was in the Ham Motel in 1922.
When Cathal Brewer died, was it?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And was captured and was later rescued by Frank Aiken.
That's right. Well,
And his elder brother, who was at that time chief sub-editor of the Irish Times,
yes,
smuggled him out of the country to London,
yes.
where he got a job with Doremus, an American advertising firm, and he married a daughter of one of the directors,
Yes.
and he joined the Honourable Artillery Corps and served with distinction in the Second World War.
Very good. Well, now that was the Thomas Davis Society.
Yeah.
That was a fine gesture. What year would that have been? 1918 or 19, was it?
Yeah, that would have been, that would have been 1918, I'd say.
Well, that was a very courageous thing to do at that particular juncture, because England was riding high,
Yeah.
and Ireland on, and Europe, having defeated the Germans.
Yeah.
Well, then, was there an OTC in Trinity at the time?
There was no TC until the truce, and then it became a sort of free state OTC.
I know, yes.
And some people of national inclination joined it
Yes.
simply in order to learn how to play the Irish pipes.
Well, I think it was Do you remember the Fenians of old joined the militia to get
Yeah.
training in musketry?
Yeah.
Well, they wanted to learn how to play the pipes. Very good.
A much more difficult thing to get a good grounding in, I'll tell you.
I know. Well, then you left Trinity at what time?
I didn't leave Trinity finally until 1925.
I see. Well, during the whole time,
You see,
the troubles were there.
I was away at the time.
Oh, from Trinity. I see.
And as a matter of fact, I came back to Trinity after, when I was released from internment, after the Civil War.
Well, we haven't got you interned yet, so we've got to get you into prison before we get you out of it.
Well,
We're only at 19 and 18.
Yeah.
Now, 1919.
Well, it's not very much. I'll tell you one thing I recollect of 1918, and that is the evening the truce, or the evening the armistice came.
Yes.
An immense crowd of soldiers on leave, and their relatives, and their wives, and their girlfriends, and all their female acquaintances marched through Dublin singing Mademoiselle from Armentiers.
Yes.
And they came to 6 Harvard Street, campaign headquarters,
Yes.
and they started to break the windows.
Yes.
Well, Joe Clark was there.
Yes.
He's now the president of Sinn Féin,
Yes.
He was there as manager of the Sinn Féin Cooperative Bank.
Yes.
And he locked the door and hastily sent for help.
Yes.
And Harry Boland and a few of the lads came along.
Yes.
And I was living up the street, so I hurried down too and went in. And in a short time, Harry had about 60 of us.
Yes.
So
You got in by the back, presumably.
we got in by the back.
Right.
And there is a little laneway opening out just beside the house, you see. And he lined us up in this laneway just out the side of the mob was back in the front. And he gave out about 20 African shields. I don't know where he got them. And about as many stout clubs. And to my great dismay, he put us in line in order of height, and I came much nearer the front than I liked. But I couldn't say anything, especially as Harry had a great big bandage round his head, which had been split earlier.
That's right.
And then Charlie shouted, "Charge!"
Yes.
Harry shouted, "Charge!" and we charged. And the demonstrators melted like
No.
snow, and to my great surprise, we marched through Dublin. And we gathered people all the time, and we came up marching through Kildare Street, 20 deep.
To the Kildare.
Yeah,
Kildare Street Club.
yeah, singing wrapped the green flag around me.
Well, that was really a turnout for the books.
It was.
Who would ever have envisaged that?
No.
Well, that was 1918.
That was
You
right.
were not a member were you a member of the Black Rock Come On that time?
Yeah.
Now, how did you get into it? You said you joined that Come On.
Yeah. Well, I was for a term as a third fraternity in a school in Blackrock, local school. And while there, I went out and I joined the Blackrock Common.
Yeah, but did you know anyone in it that, or you just ambled up to it?
I just ambled up to it.
Just like that. By the way, your father was still managing the bank in 5 minutes.
It was.
I
Yeah.
see.
Oh, for years after that.
I see. Well, he would probably take a jaundiced look at this.
He did, but he was transferred to Ramelton, County Donegal.
Oh, I see, yes.
He was transferred to Ramelton, and was able to, I was able to Pater O'Donnell to get back his car, which had been commandeered.
Oh, I see.
And that made a great difference to him.
Oh, I see.
That and the fact that he wasn't rated for arms, although everybody knew he had them.
I see, yes. Well, talking about cars and Ramelton, did you ever hang about Dr. Johnson's motor car?
Indeed, yeah.
Tell me about that, you know.
The still thing about that.
Yes. Did you hang about it yourself through Pedder or anything like that?
Huh?
You never heard anything about the background to that?
I did, but I forget it. I heard a lot about it from Michael Gordon, who was
One of the party.
OC of the local IRA, and
I see.
who used to call to see me and bring me on Togler when I was at home in Holland.
Oh, I see. That was the local one in Ramelton.
Yeah.
As far was Ramelton from the scene of Dr. Johnson's motor car?
Only about 12 miles.
I see.
Only about 12 miles. I knew some of the younger Johnsons.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, they used to come from out to play badminton.
I see. Well, the story, you forget it anyway. Of course,
I forget
it's there in the ballad anyway.
Uh-huh.
And that I'm sure it created a bit of a stir. Well, you were then in Trinity and the Thomas Davis Society.
Yeah,
And then you were a member of a local Sinn Féin Cuma.
I was. And
Who else were members of that Cuma?
I don't remember any of them now, except Liam Pedler and Liam Medler's there too.
A meddler,
Yeah,
as well as Pedler.
yeah. I think he was Liam too.
I
But it was
see.
a peddler and a meddler and a Pedler.
Oh, Pender. Was Pender from Belfast?
No, Pedler was from Blackrock.
I see.
Yeah.
Well, you see, that's why I asked you, did you ever hear of Albert Cotton, of Belfast?
Yeah.
He was a Presbyterian. His forebears had been lashed at the shafts of a cart, you see, by the yeomanry and listen in County Derry. And he was in the British Civil Service at the time. And then he was stationed in Sligo, and he organised a Sinn Féin Cuma there, I think, and then was transferred in disgrace from there to Kerry,
Yeah.
where he even did even more.
Yeah, he had more to work on.
Yes. Well, any others in the Trinity that later figured of your confreres?
Well, not to any great extent.
No.
Lyle Donaghy was he was actually on the rolls of IRA
I see.
until he became too ill.
I know.
In the 1930s, we knew that if in the unlikely event of there being a turnout,
Yes.
he would turn out,
I see, yeah.
and he had a Lee Enfield
I
in
see.
his cognizance. But by that time, he was a very sick man.
I know. Well, where was his cottage?
He was a great poet, you know.
Well, only learning to play.
You have to take my word
Oh,
for
I'm
that.
taking your word for it, yes.
The cottage is up in Kilmacole,
I see.
Mountain,
Yes, what Wicklow is it?
Dublin.
Dublin,
Not
yes.
very far from Rathfarnham.
Oh, I see, yes. Well, then, now, we got you into Sinn Féin. Now, there's a difference between Sinn Féin and IRA.
Yeah.
You have to be in the Sinn Féin first, and the Sinn Féin come on.
Well, yes, was Margaret friend to him, she was in Sinn Féin and so on,
I see.
and Dorothy Stockford.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Was Moira, you come aboard, a secretary of Mrs. Stopford Green?
She was, yeah.
Well, was that Stopford anything to the Stopford you speak of?
A niece of hers.
I see, yeah. I remember as a boy at school that little yellow-backed history,
Yes.
Mrs. Stopford Green, and it was a grand little
Yeah.
history. Well, then you joined the IRA when?
I joined IRA 1919. Commandant, well, he was then using his British rank, Captain McManus of the dragoons.
Yes.
The dragoons. He was then leaving out to see the machine gun through both legs, the little.
I see, yes.
And Michael Collins appointed him as an intelligence agent in Trinity and sort of circles round that, other retired military men. And he appointed me as an intelligence agent, reporting only to himself.
I see. Well, he would have, as an ex-military officer, bearing honourable scars, he would have access to Kildare Street Club. And things like that.
Yeah, a member of the Soldiers Club and Stephen Green. And he was a member, actually, in good standing of what you might call county society.
Yes, I know, yeah.
He was one of the, well, he was known in the west of Ireland as Dermot Manus, because before he was blamed, he was the most daring rider in the province.
He's a Sligo man, was he?
No, Mayo.
Mayo, yeah.
Strange enough, he was a nephew of Lucy McManus, who wrote some excellent books on the Republican viewpoint. White Light and Flame was one of them.
I'm sorry, I haven't read them. And well, then
She became a Republican, and then he became a Republican.
Oh, I see, yeah.
And then, unfortunately, when the truth came, he got in very much of problems, and as soon as the treaty was signed, he lost in court as OC of some force that invaded Limerick. He was later governor for a while of the Galway.
Okay. Well, then there was a famous governor of the Joy, a bit of a madman. What's this called?
Podgy.
Well, now, you were, in 1919, you were intelligence officer. And I'm not interested in anything the intelligence you got, that's not concerned about it.
I had 1 week in the Joy in 1920.
Had you?
Yeah. 1 week. I was picked up in an Irish-speaking restaurant, and picked up by auxiliaries.
Yes.
And they weren't satisfied with the look of some documents that they found in my pocket.
Yes.
And they went to my lodging, and they were still less satisfied with various things that I had done. So they took me along, and they put me in the castle in Chip Street.
Yes.
And after a couple of days, I was transferred to the Joy.
Yes.
And after a week, I was released. And 2 days later, I was going up Grafton Street, and I met John Joyce, later Colonel Joyce of the National Army. And at that time, an officer of the Dublin Brigade, and he said, yes, it's an extraordinary thing. We have come into possession of a lot of papers belonging to you. Yes. I'll get them left over, if you like.
How did he get him? A raid somewhere.
A raid somewhere. And, well, it was only evidence that they would have used against me. Of course, they could have interned me. I don't know why they didn't.
Very strange, all right. But you were only in there for a week.
I was only in there for a week.
It was most strange that they let you out.
It was, of course, there were, as I say, the evidence was probably gone. And I have no doubt that my parents had all kinds of unionists pulling strings.
Well, of course, you would give your home address, did you? What?
What?
Yeah. He didn't give you a Dublin address. He gave you a Melton address.
Oh, I know I gave my Dublin address.
Well, then how would they contact your parents
My parents came down to Dublin.
when you were arrested?
Yeah.
Oh, now that explains something, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, certainly, they would really stick by you.
Yeah.
You're not comfortable there.
Oh, did they? I'm
No,
very,
you're not.
very,
You're,
very
slave, you're slaving.
I'm very comfortable.
And if you want to go upstairs, you can let me know.
Well, now, as I say, Bob Hilliard was killed in Spain.
Yes.
I hadn't so much connection with it then after that. You
No,
see.
not just
I
no.
was on the Army Council, but one night in 1929, I think it was, I was invited to a coming of age party in Trinity.
Yes.
And a very wild party it was. And there I met, for the first time, Owen O'Mahony, the Pope, who was a very strong advocate of Benny
I see.
or community. And two young men named Patrick O'Flaherty and Dennis Burskoyle.
Yes.
And I worked on them as hard as I could that night,
Yes.
with the result that at least I turned O'Mahony into a free post, which I suppose a little respect at that. But the other two I brought into my array.
Oh, that
I
is
can
the-
remember Patrick O'Flaherty.
Yes.
He was he signed the ultimatum to
That's right, yes.
and I often felt guilty about bringing them into it because they served long service in prison and that.
I know. There were O'Flaherty's up near Strabane. Or were they any friend of theirs? No wonder.
I wouldn't think so.
No.
These were the Wexford family.
Oh, I see, yes. Well,
And Burskoyle, well, he got TB and he went to South Africa, but he's flourishing in South Africa.
oh, good. Well, then you were only a week in the Mountjoy, but then
Yeah.
you said you were interned.
Yeah, well, that was during the Civil War.
Well, now, tell me about before your internment. How did they get you? Where?
Well, the day the Civil War broke out,
Yes.
I was actually on a visit in Oxford in England,
Yes.
and I came back as hard as I could, and I went into Trinity College, and I went into my own Trinity College, and I found it had been turned into a temporary military barracks by the National Army,
Yes.
and they put me under arrest.
Oh.
So in the course of the day, I managed to wander out,
Yes.
and I wasn't noticed until I was near the medical school.
Yes.
So they opened fire on me from a
Window.
window, but range pretty long, and I never went over any obstacle as quickly as I did over the wall of the Western Road, where I saw a tram going by at a great rate, and I jumped on the tram and it turned to Nassau Street, and the machine gun opened fire, and the tram started back. So I got off the tram. But that's,
Yeah, but you're not arrested yet.
no, I got arrested yet. Well,
Now, it'll be between the...
I made my way out of Blessington.
No, well, we'll go back a little there, backtrack to the truce itself. Where did you find yourself, famous, the truce?
During the truce, I was at Trinity College,
Yes.
and I begun, well, I didn't think that the war was going to start again.
Oh, I know,
To
yes.
be candid, I thought that Devonera would
Except,
pull something out of that.
yes, I know.
And I actually got more interested in socialism then.
I see, yes.
And I was associated with Liam O'Flaherty and
Yes,
Roddy Connolly.
yes.
in plans to start a new citizen army.
Yes,
As soon as they got really settled down, you know.
I know, yes. Well, can you tell me anything about the communes in Tipperary at that time? Do you remember there was a few?
I do.
Yeah.
I really can't tell you anything about that.
No.
My wife's brother-in-law could tell you all about that.
I know it's just as we're passing, I think.
It was he who seized the Clover meat factory in Waterford.
Yes.
And it was he who set up a couple of the Tipperary communes. So
Yes.
he was OC of the West Waterford Brigade.
I see. So during that interregnum from July until December, then
Yeah.
you were contemplating the socialism rather than you thought that there might become a socialist republic sometime or other.
Yeah, I thought that when we got the other republic started,
Yes.
we might
That
start.
from that,
Yeah.
that would be an.
And I didn't know such an awful lot about it.
No, I know. Yeah.
I was beginning to read pamphlets about it.
Yes, I know.
I tell you the truth, to this day, I have not learned Capital.
I'm not a bit surprised.
I do not.
It's too long. Oh no. No, that's in the same street as Mein Kampf or War and Peace. They're too long.
Yeah, yeah.
And besides, they're outdated to a degree. Well, now, say, did you then? When did you get the rumblings that the Civil War was about to begin?
Well, for a couple of weeks beforehand, people got the idea things weren't going too well.
Yes.
But as I say, I was actually on holiday
I know, in Oxford.
in Oxford when it started. And when I came back and got away from it, I went out to Blessington,
Yes.
where I joined Terry Bowling.
Jerry. Yeah. That's the father of Kevin.
That's Kevin's father. Yeah.
Well, I can't understand why he can be such a great Republican when his Republican father killed Republicans in the 39 war.
I know. I wrote an awful letter to Terry Bowling because he and I had been really friends.
I know, yes.
And I found it very hard that he should have shot some of those men and hanged
Terrible,
them.
yeah.
Yeah,
He did that in the name of republicanism.
he did.
However, you joined up with Jerry Boland and
I joined up with Jerry Bowling, Ernie O'Malley, and a British ex-officer named Kenneth McCall, whom I knew because although he wasn't in Trinity, he associated with a lot of our Thomas Davis Club activities, and I had been asked actually to settle for the movement.
I see.
And he joined that way.
Yeah. Well, was he a northerner, McCall, no?
No, Isle of Man.
I see, very interesting.
But his father was Mayo, you see,
I see,
and
yes.
his mother was Dublin. The real name is Cole,
Cool, I
and
see,
it's
yes.
a Menestrone name.
I see, yes. Well, then that was, you got out to Blessington and teamed up there.
Yeah.
Well, then you were on the run then.
Well, the Blessington thing ended by us being surrounded and getting the order to break up into small parties and make off, which we did. And Seamus McCall and I left Blessington in company with Harold McBride, who had been in Dublin on a holiday and was actually OC of the 2nd Brigade, the 3rd Western.
Yes.
So Seamus McCall told me that we had an option. We had an offer to go down to Cork
Yes.
and help to run the Cork Examiner.
Yes.
But that Harold McBride invited us to go to the West and do some more active work. So we opted for the West.
Did you meet Kilroy at any time?
I didn't.
Oh, well.
James McCall did, but I didn't because I didn't get further than East Mayo.
I see.
We went first of all to Rigna,
Yes.
and we were there for some time. And there came a day when we were tired of sitting up there on the top of the mountain, and we marched to a graveyard near Ballyfarnham, where Carl and the Bard is buried. I can't remember the name of it. But we took up ambush positions there, and it was a bright summer's day, and we felt sure somebody would come out to fight us. But it was a garrison in Ballyfarnham, and there was only about 40 of us. In the end, a car approached with more of the Free State Army officers in it, and a white flag.
A white flag?
Yeah.
Well,
So they came up to us and they said that they didn't like this idea of Irishmen shooting each other, and they'd come to see if we couldn't arrange a local truce. And if we had a local truce, maybe we could spread it to other areas. So a document was drawn up and signed by Brigadier Thomas McGivney, Captain Starry Travers, Captain John Mitchell on behalf of the Free State, and by Harold McBride, Lesbrook and Captain Seamus McCall on behalf of the Republic.
yes, I see.
And McCall and I were instructed to go round the brigade area and notify all the
What had
outlying
been done,
posts that there was no shooting. And we walked off, we went to Drumahare,
Yes.
and we went up, and Drumahare there was a post office, you see.
Yes.
And it was a very large two-story house at a little distance on each side of it. And each of these was occupied by about 40 Free State troops.
Yes.
So we went up to one of these and introduced ourselves.
Yes.
And was off before the OC, and he said, "You're under arrest."
He didn't honor the truth. Well,
So we were taken off to Manor Hamilton Barracks.
yes.
And with an early-shaven Manor Hamilton Barracks, because for the first and only time in my experience, I encountered sectarianism.
Yes.
McConnell was a Protestant too,
Yes.
and the two of us were there in a cell, and a number of drunken soldiers came in to play night, and there was a dairyman and two for many men, and they came to the cell with the object of painting those bloody Protestants.
Leave it to the Derry Northern and again and be sectarianist. Well,
And it was a very tense moment for us.
yes.
But Commandant McGuire and Commandant Ronnie remarked to us, the Free State officers in the barracks,
Yes.
defended us. And McGuire was actually shot and wounded.
In that melee.
Yeah.
Well, now you're alone with your Captain Manor Hamilton.
We were transferred next day to Longford internment camp, where we went on hunger strike because we considered we had been unfairly.
Sure, there was the
Yes.
truce was broken, so on.
And we'd been on hunger strike for over a week when General John McComb passed through, and he inspected the place and he said, "What are these?"
Aye.
And then when he was told what these were, he said, well, he gave orders for us to be released at once and given free transport to as near our base as was safe.
Yeah.
So that was done.
Uh-huh.
And we were brought the rest away in a pony and trap and arrived just in time to find a large body of Free State troops around the city.
At a Rigna direction. And yeah. But he honoured the truth to that degree, anyway. He did, yeah. He left you back where it had begun. But you wouldn't be long there till you were surrounded now.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, we went down one of the mine shafts with a local miner.
yeah.
Between the three of us, we had a bottle of whiskey and a dozen boiled duck. And we went down until we reached a point where there was water. We stopped. After a time, we heard a distant dull thud. You know, like the noise a rabbit makes, you know, when it comes down.
Yes.
And we heard that recording and coming nearer.
Yes.
And then, as we saw, we could see the mountain was 50 feet.
Yeah.
And we saw a couple of trees there, so big that last the pit. And one went out down and started firing down.
Yes.
Well, we moved a bit further. And then we got a truck at the heel of the ground, and we came behind it, and the two hands, you know, from behind the truck. And they brought the roof was set down in front of us. And we couldn't get out. But still they couldn't get in.
No, but it was a bad position to be in.
It was a very bad position to be in, and I didn't like it a bit, no. But Paul said that they would only shoot us if they could get out. So we were between the devil and the big tree. We just stayed quiet. And after a lapse of about 6 hours, we heard somebody just be set carrot. And more the pit.
Yeah.
The miners were in the pit.
Very good. The military had gone, had they?
They'd gone.
They probably thought they'd entombed you.
Exactly. As they did,
They did entomb you.
7, 8 months later with 2 other members of that column.
They did.
Yeah.
Oh, dear, oh. It was a bitter war.
Oh, it was. Only they didn't consume it.
They fixed your cricket there,
They took kids and
you're in the table.
by burning,
You're all over the place.
burning what you do.
They fix those things and get yourself properly ensconced.
Well,
When you got out of the place then, where did you go there?
we got out of the place then and we succeeded in contacting the column. But Seamus McCall, as I say, was an ex-security officer and he didn't get on too well with the local men.
Okay.
He wanted to set up an officer's mess.
I see. Not democratic as far as they
That
were.
wouldn't really happen.
No, that wasn't the Republican Army. That.
So he asked me to go with him. They said we'd go and join the 8th Mayo, as he said.
Yeah.
And we marched by night for 3 nights until we reached Balladreen.
Yes.
So they reported for the 8th Mayo camp. And we're well enough to reach there. Only he had suffered more from the hunger strike than we'd expect.
Yeah.
And he was ill. And I didn't know where he'd gone, but he had actually gone to Marcelo at the Western headquarters.
Yeah.
Well, I was left there, and 6 members of our drawing company from Belfast were sent down and to help us.
You can't remember any of their names, can you?
I can remember probably the whole lot of them.
Yeah, just interesting. Yeah.
There was Ned Colligan.
Yeah.
He was our machine gunner.
Yeah.
Sean O'Shea.
Yeah.
He was my particular friend. He was discharge worker.
Yeah.
Jimmy Duffy, George Young, Frank Tulin, and Charlie Stewart.
I don't know any of their names. No.
And Charlie Stewart was a prophet.
Very good. Yeah.
These 6 men had been in the British Army
Yeah.
in the First World War.
Yeah.
And at the end of the war, they were all in the same company, and they were friends.
I know,
They
yeah.
were all from Belfast.
Yeah.
And they came back, and O'Shea's home was being burned by a Protestant mob.
Yes.
And the whole section gone entirely that way.
I see. So they came down to give assistance to the East meals again.
They did, yeah. They and 2 Liverpool men.
Can you remember their names?
One of them was called Eamon Martin, but it wasn't a celebrated Dublin.
Oh, I know, yeah.
And the other, no, I can't remember the other man's name.
Well, now this is in Ballaghaderreen. That's the
and
Ballaghaderreen.
they called us, the local people called us the foreigners.
Well, now, before we go from there, you see, on my keeping on in there, how did you sustain yourself for food and drink, so to speak, around the ring now?
Around the ring now.
Was it on the country folk? Were they helpful?
They were all, everybody around the
Just a
ring.
moment, I changed it. The cicadi, as they call them there. You get it in tropical films.
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
That's cicadi, I think it is. Well, we're on the air again. The Foreign Legion. They spoke there about the Foreign Legion, man. They called you the Foreign Legion. And you said they were small farmers, and they were all helpful to
We
you.
were small farmers, and a lot of them in normal times were miners also working
I
in
see,
the
yes.
coal
I know,
mine. In fact, the leader of the column,
Yeah.
he had a small pit himself.
I see, yeah. But talking about how did you work your way through our country at war from Blessington to Arwigna? Have you no experience about that?
Very simply.
Right?
Simply by getting the chief editor of the Irish Times to give us a pass as reporters.
He was the sub-editor.
We went by trade. I'm trying to ask that question.
Have you all got this on the press?
Huh?
You got this by the press?
Yeah.
And you went by train to Cavan or
Well,
something?
we went by train to Carrick-on-Salmon.
Yes.
And Carrick-on-Salmon, we got a friendly girl with a funny trap. That was us.
Well, then you marched there. You did a lot of marching.
Oh, we did a lot of marching.
Well, had you not to avoid troops and checkpoints and things?
For a long time, we had very little avoiding of troops to do.
I see.
Yeah. For a long time, any time troops came to Regna, they came in flights of 500 or 600.
I see.
You'd see them coming a long way.
I know why.
And similarly in Ballaghaderreen, indeed. I mean, in Ballaghadereen for some time we were able to live in the town.
Yes.
And when a column of troops passed through, we just went out of the back doors of the houses.
Yes. Well, then, were there any funds at all? How did you couldn't very well give the local grocer a note and say this will be paid by the Republic.
Oh, yes, that's what we did.
And you did, and that was it. Was it ever honoured? Were these things honoured later
They were.
by Fianna Fáil?
They were honoured by, they were, yeah.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that.
As a matter of fact, even for George Regna, a couple of years afterwards, I was able to help the mine owners
Yes.
by giving them a detailed sworn statement.
Yes, of the help they'd given.
Yeah.
I see. I'm glad that that was done, that they honoured their bond to that extent. Well, I suppose, who scrutinised the authenticity of these demand notices?
Well, that I don't know.
Yeah. Well, would the commandant at the time, if he were alive, not be able to vouch for it?
Hmm?
I suppose some of the officers would have to vouch for it.
Well, that would be it. Yeah.
Aye. Well, then, did you ever give evidence at the Bureau of Military History, the Pensions Bureau or Military History Bureau?
No, I didn't.
No.
The only thing I ever had to do with was when I tried to get Jack O'Shea, one of the Belfast men, I tried to get him a total disability pension
I see.
and failed signally.
Well, how was he totally disabled?
Well, he was in was in the big TB hospital at Belfast.
I know.
And the discharged him and said that he was incurable and wouldn't live more than 6 months or a year.
Well, he had already a British military pension, had he?
He had a very small one.
But it wasn't a disablement one, that's what I mean.
It was. He had got a slight hand wound.
Oh, I see, yes. Well, then, talking about that then, you didn't seek a pension yourself?
No, I didn't see a pension.
I'm very pleased you didn't.
Well, I know that I never thought of it.
I'm glad you didn't, because, as I said coming in the car, so many sought pensions and so many sought medals, and they got the commandant of their group to go along and swear all sorts of lies. I remember hearing about an ambush somewhere near Cavan there, and I think Paddy Smith, a great friend of Dale's, was in it. It turned out there was about 1,000 in the ambush, and there probably wasn't 20. You see, but that sort of thing. Well, you were then in Balladreen.
In Balladreen, and I remember a couple of things about that. Ned Corrigan, one of the Belfast men, the column made him their Lewis gunner.
Yeah.
Because he was a very big man, and he was the only man who could carry a Lewis gun on the march by himself.
That's true, yes.
And there was another Belfast man, Frank Tolan. Well, it came about one day that the column was built over a fairly wide stretch of countryside. You see.
Yes.
There were sentries
Yeah.
at each end.
Yeah.
Well, the sentries apparently at one end fell asleep
Mm-hmm.
because a Free State column in 8 motor cars and with 2 machine guns came along and rounded up 7 or 8 men.
Yes.
And they then came to the other end of the stretch of road where Frank Tolan and a local man were
Yeah.
stationed. And Frank wasn't asleep.
No.
And the local man, a man with extraordinary name of Bolingbroke.
Bolingbroke.
Yeah. He wasn't very experienced,
No.
but he was able to keep loading the rifle for Frank Tolan
Yes, yes.
and handing him up hand grenades.
Yes.
And Frank attacked the column on his own from behind a wall.
Yes.
And the upshot was they lost 5 killed and 8 wounded.
Yes.
They left 2 motor cars behind,
Yes.
and all the prisoners escaped.
Very good, but there would be court-martialed afterwards, I should think.
Well, there was a big account of it in Independent next day.
I see.
And it said that they were ambushed by upwards of 60 well-armed irregulars.
Yes.
And they fought them. They fought them for several hours, and then broke off the action when they saw some hundreds of irregulars approaching over the hills.
There's just the war.
Well, actually, some of us, we heard the shooting. We thought it was a terrific battle.
Yes.
And we commandeered sidecars and
Yeah.
Take the
To
car
cook,
with
yeah.
food. And that's what the sewers coming in the side car. Moved on. They actually, they had two machine guns set up in a field, attacking by tooling, and they weren't able to hit him.
That's right.
But he's alive and well still.
That's so.
Yeah. And Charlie Stewart, the Protestant I told you about, at the meeting when I gave the lecture the other night, Frank McLeod.
Yes,
Frank McLeod came and he said, I want to introduce you to Jimmy Stewart, Charlie Stewart's son.
is that so? Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
And Charlie's still alive, though.
Charlie's still alive, yeah. Charlie was in hospital, but it wasn't serious.
No.
And he's coming to see me in Dublin in a
Good.
couple of weeks' time.
Well, now, say, that was a successful engagement. The military were repulsed in that one.
It was.
And you were still in Ballaghaderreen area,
Yeah.
aren't you? Well, then, any other engagement?
We kept moving around there, and then we had a disastrous thing happened. The OC got cut off
Yes.
in a house, and he came out. He was a middle-aged man, in fact, rather more than middle-aged,
Yes.
and he had been very badly wounded at a town in Hamburg.
Who was he?
Seamus Moran.
Moran, yeah.
And his brother Pat had been shot in Athlone military barracks a
Yeah.
couple of weeks before,
Yeah.
allegedly accidentally.
I know.
Well, he refused to surrender, and he fell wounded, and he rose in one knee, and they went on firing, and of course they had to shoot him.
Yes, I know, yeah.
But
Well,
it
he
kind of broke up everything.
He was cut off from you.
He was cut off, yeah.
Well, then it broke up the column.
It broke up the column, more or less. His successor, a man named Kelly, gave the order to dump arms for the time being.
Yes, I know.
Well, that was very inconvenient for people like the Foreign Legion.
Of course, yes.
Because Balladreen, that country, it wasn't bad, but it was not as friendly as Origna.
I know,
And
yeah.
if you're going around just like a Bacchus,
I know,
too many, if it wasn't so good.
No.
And Jack O'Shea, he used to go around telling people that I was a great singer.
Yes.
And we'd get a nice loud, and I'd have to sing.
And were you a good singer?
No, I wasn't, but I knew a good many. I knew a good many songs. That was
Very
okay.
good. Well, then you broke up, so to speak. And where did you gravitate to then?
Went back to Origna. I knew at any rate we wouldn't have to dump arms there,
I know.
even if there weren't many arms going.
Well, now this was would this be in the autumn of 22?
Yeah, this was my autumn, yeah.
Of 22?
Yeah.
Well, now, at this time the order had been made by the Common and Ale government, or provisional government, that anybody found with arms after a certain date would suffer death.
Yeah, exactly.
I see. Well, you find yourself still around Origna.
The fellows I was still around Origna, and I tell you this, there were 40 men in the column,
Yes,
and that was as many as there was arms for.
I see.
We found that any time we could get hold of another weapon,
Yes.
there wasn't the slightest difficulty in getting a man to use it.
Oh, I see. That's
Not the
interesting.
slightest difficulty. And in January 1923,
Yes.
when the column carried out a most extraordinary operation, they seized a train at Origna Station. It was Little Light Railway.
Yes.
Seized the train, boarded it, and went to Drumshambo,
Yes.
where they attacked and captured the barracks.
Yes.
I took all the guns out of it and went down to Ballinamore, where they repeated this performance,
Yes.
and came back to Origna and augmented the column to a strike of 120.
Splendid. Aye. There's still a remnant of Sinn Féin and republicanism around Ballinamore, isn't there?
It is, yeah.
It's still there.
Yeah.
Well, then, all the time you were stationed, so to speak, on the border,
Yeah.
there was never any incursions attempted or threatened or anything to the north, no?
No, there wasn't.
No.
Only,
Despite of the fact that the pogrom was on here.
I went up once to Melton for a week to
Yes.
see my father and mother, and getting away again, they were afraid I would be spotted.
Yes, I see.
And the local parson
Yes.
agreed to ride in the front seat of the car,
Yes.
and I was in the back seat dressed as a woman.
Very good. You're a pretty Amazonian woman.
You see, you may say, but we felt that the parson would probably disarm
I
any
see.
suspicion.
Well, now, that was taking you from where to where? From
That was
Ramelton?
taking me from Ramelton to Strabane.
I see.
At Strabane, I made a hasty change in the gentleman's waiting room. I got a train.
So you became a man then?
Yeah,
Well, then you had no bother in Strabane.
I had no bother.
And where were you going? You were going by rail then
I
to
was
where?
going by rail to Dromahir.
I see. And no bother.
No bother whatever.
You wouldn't have been known, presumably, by the RUC or anything at that time.
I might have been known by some of them because I did get a message
Yes.
from District Inspector Leslie Murray
Yes.
warning me that my name was on some list
I see.
that I wasn't to cross the border.
I see. Well, then you had to, in point of fact, to get
Yeah,
from Ramelton
I had
back.
to.
Well,
And on that train, I met, when we came into Leitrim,
yes.
on the train there was a Free State soldier I knew,
Yes.
but I knew he was very unlikely to say anything.
I know, yes, I know. Well, then now you're back at Arena,
Yeah,
and that would be, what month would that have been? It was winter time, I think.
yeah, that
Or
was
late autumn,
that was January.
January, yeah. Well, now what happens now?
Oh, the next thing that happened is that O'Shea went to Belfast to see his relations, and he came back. He was to come back on this day, and I was waiting for him at a cottage about a mile outside Dromahir, and two motor cars full of Free State officers arrived at the cottage and took me off.
You must have been given away.
I must have been given away in some way, but when we got to Manor Hamilton, they had taken O'Shea off the train at Manor Hamilton instead of letting us go to Dromahir.
Yes.
And O'Shea, for a moment, was inclined to wonder, had I given him away?
I know, there's the thing. Yes, very well. Well, you were both then now brought to proper internment.
Huh?
Were you interned then now? Were you brought to internment then?
Yes, after an interval. We were about a month in Manhattan military barracks.
Yes.
Then we were moved to Sligo jail. And eventually, about the following May, we were brought to Newbridge internment camp.
That was the Curragh,
Yeah,
or Newbridge.
Newbridge, yeah.
Well, there were many internees that time, weren't there?
There were an enormous number.
Was Feather O'Donnell in
There were
that time?
thousands and thousands.
Yes. Well, then there was a large hunger strike, wasn't there?
There was, yeah.
And now, have you any reminiscences of the hunger strike?
No, It was a very dreary and unsatisfactory thing.
Yeah, well, it lasted for a long time, though.
It lasted for a long time.
Yes.
It was just beginning to be realized then that
Yes.
people can last a very long time.
Yeah, I think there were 28 days on in some instances. Well, then they broke it, I
Yeah.
think, by sending some of the ones down from Mount Joy, where it was going simultaneously,
Yeah.
and then it broke, I think, that thing. You wouldn't have experienced it, but others that I talked to concerning the internment camps, the bishop's excommunication, of course, was on that time.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, even in danger of death, they wouldn't receive the sacraments at all. It was very hard on them.
It was very hard on them.
And
It was, it was terribly hard
It was.
on men who were actually
Good.
in action nearly every
it
day.
was, and good
Yeah.
people at that.
Yeah.
There was Dr. Fern in that time. There was Dr. Frank Fern.
And I'll tell you things which I noticed was that very often our men were particularly good Catholics.
Yes,
you know.
that's
I
true.
mean, they were much better than the ordinary
I
person.
know, yes.
And the thing that struck me tremendously was that the man who was a very good Catholic was the man who was most tolerant to something like me.
I know, yes. Well, were there any northern internees in your particular hutments? Or?
There were mostly St. Donegal and in Northern
Well,
there were quite a few St. Donegal,
Yeah.
Irish speakers too.
Yeah.
That was where I really began to get ahead of it with Irish.
Yes, I see.
There was a fellow also from Temple. Well, he was in Sligo jail with me too.
Yeah, what is his name, can you remember?
Slavin, Joe Slavin.
I heard that name, aye.
Yeah,
Aye.
and he and I, we both studied Irish together,
Yes.
both at Sligo and at this place, and he became pretty good at it.
Yes.
He had been a barman in Belfast,
Yes.
and he had been amateur heavyweight boxing champion of Ireland,
That's right, aye.
and he shot a mill owner in Lisbon.
Yes.
So he was very much on the run.
He shot who? A Malone?
A mill owner.
Or Milone?
Yeah, he was an officer of the local
I
special.
see. There was kidnapping of the gentry here along the border.
Yeah, he was engaged in that. Yeah,
Was he?
he was. Yeah.
Well, was that in? Do you remember one O'Duffy and ours where Dan Hogan and all were arrested? They were going to play a football match during the truce,
Yeah,
and they were arrested.
yeah,
Put in the day. So then the IRA kidnapped some of the leading unionists of the
Yeah.
border area.
yeah.
Well, you wouldn't be on that part at that time. You were in Dublin then.
I was in
This was
Dublin,
during the
yeah.
truce period. Well, then, along with you, who was the camp commandant or the prisoners?
You know, I don't remember.
Well, who was the army commandant? Can you?
I don't remember that
No,
either.
no.
I tell you one funny thing I do remember.
I didn't think anything funny in
He
it.
said, no little point. We had a regular little Protestant congregation in the camp.
I'm interested to hear
We had
this. Yeah.
services every Sunday, about 40 attended them.
That's great to hear that.
And the clergyman used to be very popular with us because he brought in notes and he brought out notes.
Very good. Was he the local rector?
He was the local
They
rector.
didn't have a Protestant army chaplain, no.
No.
I see. So that was interesting. And the 40 non-Catholics were put them up,
Yeah.
or Protestants, whatever you wish. Where were they from, mostly? Donegal, no?
Sligo and Wicklow, those two places contributed rather more than their share.
That's right.
There were quite a number of Protestant Republicans in Wicklow.
Yes.
They were rather of the of the gentleman farmer type.
The same as the signatory of the treaty,
Exactly.
that type.
Yeah. There was Captain Wilfrid Dowd, who had been a British artillery officer.
Yes.
And there was Captain Robinson, who was a cavalry officer. And
Yeah.
a number of people like that.
Yeah.
People that had been brought into it by them, you see.
Yeah.
Well, in Sligo, there was a farming family called Anderson, and there was the Fraser Brown. Fraser Brown was secretary of the Calf Works,
I see.
and there was Bradshaw, who was the editor of the Connaught Man,
Yes.
and there was Harry Benson, who was a farmer and was OC of the local common.
That's very interesting.
Yeah,
You see, this is a facet of the whole thing
yeah,
that but few I would have never known.
yeah,
The thing looked upon as so distinctly Catholic
yeah,
that it lost all its republicanism.
yeah, yeah,
And they don't highlight this sort of thing.
yeah.
And any of the stories that one reads about, the Protestants never get any credit at all.
Well, I'll tell you a strange thing that came,
But I'm interested to hear this.
came to my knowledge lately, and that is that 3 Fermanagh Protestants fought in Dublin in 1916.
Yeah.
That's a big quota from one county.
I know it is, yes.
Well, I knew one of them intimately,
Yes.
George Irwin.
Yes.
He was one of the Dublin IRB centres.
Yes.
But the other two, Wilson and Scott, I didn't know, and I'm trying now to find out who they were or what.
Yeah, well,
became of
this is a facet of the thing that should be done, and it would do a healing process.
Yeah,
It would be good in the interest of true republicanism,
yeah, yeah,
because for too long this has been associated as being pro fide et patria,
yeah.
which
yeah,
was a Hibernian motto.
Yeah, yeah.
And the fide in that case was papistry. So now that's very interesting that there was 40 internees
Yeah.
in that particular camp
Yeah.
that were Protestant.
And I suppose there were a few others.
Or there would be, presumably.
Yeah.
Well, they were honest to God Republicans.
They were, yes.
I mean, they weren't there just caught in the draft by.
Oh, no. Oh, no, the right next old friend, J.J. Reynolds, the proprietor of the Harp and Shamrock Hotel in Sligo,
Well,
who was an ex-British soldier, see, and very loyal.
yeah.
But the police had to commandeered the hotel, and on going through rooms, they found that he had 300 gold sovereigns stowed away.
Yes.
So they jumped them into Sligo jail with the rest of them.
That's so, yes. Now, in your conversations with those other 39 people,
Yeah.
what, to use a word that I don't like, what motivated them to become Republicans at that particular juncture in Ireland's history? Because the average Protestant one considered that time was for king and country.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, can you analyze from your conversations in the past with those, and you knew them,
No,
what made them?
I can't, because I must say that we never tried to analyze it.
No, the
I
thing is
think we
that
took it for granted.
you have made a self-analysis
Yeah,
that, strange as it may seem, George Bernard Shaw
yeah,
brought you to your first patriotism,
yeah.
that sort of thing. But there was a nexus between your forebears, the McAlpers, you know,
Yeah,
and somewhere along that line there it came. But these are, as you speak of, I'm interested to hear this. If there's anything that made them find themselves in this situation, was it anything like the 1782 people?
no,
Like, if only this were, that's a facet, actually, that until this.
well, Bob Barton, the secretary for
Yes,
Treasury.
I speak about it. Yes,
Yeah.
mention him, right?
Well, he was very much influenced by what he saw in Dublin in these 2 weeks.
Well, that would be influenced probably that he saw that there was a mere handful of men taking on the might of the empire.
Yeah,
An admiration of that. It was like the Greeks at Thermopylae.
yeah,
You know, 100
Yeah.
men, like a nation once again,
yeah,
that held the valley. That would explain his there. Erskine Childers, presumably, I don't know where Erskine Childers, who had been a naval intelligence in Britain, you see,
Yeah.
British Navy. He was probably a relative to some degree, perhaps. Of
Well, he was a relative of Barton, you know.
That's to say,
Yeah.
yes.
And he was a home ruler, you see.
Yes, but how many
He
stayed
brought in arms for the Irish volunteers.
What did it have to do with Parnellism?
I would say that the Coulter Parnell has
Yes.
brought the Wicklow
Yes.
considerable effect.
I was
Yeah.
feeling that might be.
Yeah,
And that the ghost of the United Irishmen permeated around Ballymena and Ballymoney and parts of Antrim and East Down,
yeah.
that sort of thing. Although it was getting submerged by accretions of say, I suppose the tragedy was Orangism, to a degree. Orangism then, when the Presbyterians became Orange,
Yes, and Orangism, of course, gave rise to Hungarianism.
granted, but Orangism, when the Presbyterians, I had great faith in Presbyterians of old, and then suddenly with do you remember the black man?
Yeah, yeah.
That he started to make those Orange men, and that's why I suppose they've lost that patriotism to it.
Yeah.
And there was a grave danger in the last few years that we here in the north, even the Catholic population, was becoming good little Britishers with a welfare state.
Well, that's the thing that worried more Comerford, for example,
Yes.
at the time. But none of us was worried about that as we were.
No, I can understand that.
Yeah, I mean, we feel that the Catholic population here can take a lot, and
Yeah, well, and they have been a sort of helots anyway.
Yeah.
Therefore they were. But the danger was, the most dangerous premier we had was O'Neill.
yeah,
O'Neill with his soft talk
yeah,
and all like that
yeah,
very nearly made the sectarian type Belfast man a British person.
yeah,
And if he had gone along and recognized the Mater Hospital,
yeah,
even an ex gratia payment,
yeah.
there wouldn't have been a stone fired in anger in the whole up around Ardoyne. All those old Shawleys
Yeah,
would have been, isn't he great?
yeah, yeah,
And it was a blessing that he was put out because he projected an image of sweet reasonableness.
yeah,
And if there was a secret plebiscite some years back, they would never have voted to be included in the Free State. But we're digressing there.
Well, of course, it's not such a great cock to be in the Free State.
Oh, I know, nobody wants to be there.
I tell you this, for a long time now, certainly for some years now, I have never really felt so much an Irishman as I do when I come north of the border.
Yeah, but that's what I feel. It may be that we are patting ourselves in the back. If you want to get the straight shooter that stays that sort of way, you've got to get it. It's not the sycophantic yes, your honor, southerner. And this tourism is the most dangerous thing. They're exempting tourism.
Yeah.
And the result is that you have yes, your honor mentality in every hotel down south.
Yeah,
And who are they seeking after? The old dollar Americans.
yeah.
And the worst Americans are the Irish Americans when they come back. But to get more about these Protestants who were Republican and Sligo and places that you knew, something must have made them truly Republican. And it wasn't their admiration of Wolfe Tone.
No.
And what would it been?
I don't know what it can have
Because if you could get that secret, you might be able to work upon it still.
Yeah, I've often wondered about Sligo myself.
Yes.
And now it's one of the least Republican places now.
But there are still a remnant there.
There's still a remnant. There's a remnant in parts of Leeds.
Yes.
But, of course, those Republican areas got very bad show from the Conservative governments.
And what sense a bad show?
Well, they didn't seem to show properly in grants or anything.
Oh, I know. Well,
The people, there was no attempt made to stem emigration.
but let's be sensible about it. As regards land,
Yeah.
the land of Leitrim is rotten.
It is,
It's just a swamp. As you look through it, there's nothing at all to ask anybody to stay there. Is there a Pilkington or Pinkerton or Pilkington around Sligo?
he's on one of the orders.
Oh, he's redemptorist now.
Yeah.
He was in that
Yeah,
period,
he
wasn't
he?
he?
Was. Harry Benson was killed on Melbourne with his entire column.
That's right. There's a little man in retirement there, Rory Graham, lives outside Sligo,
Yeah.
a Belfast man, and he's still an unrepentant Fenian. Rory Graham, you wouldn't have met. He was interned on the Argenta ship.
Yeah. No,
No, you
I
couldn't have
don't
known him. He's a younger group,
Yeah.
I think.
Well, there was a Graham who was arrested in the 40s.
Oh no, it wasn't Rory.
No.
No, Rory was arrested under an assumed name, and he had the doubtful honour of being tried while he was interned in his own name. He had been captured in County Derry. Well, you didn't hear on the grapevine, as to say, anything about the struggle here in the north at that period that went side by side with your Civil War.
Oh, and I heard a certain amount about it,
Yeah.
but mostly about the Derry end of it.
I know, well,
Because my parents were living at Tremelton.
yes, I know.
And it's strange to say, my father was a considerable friend of the Blaney family.
Yes,
In fact, when Neil Blaney's father was in jail,
Yeah.
my father helped to keep the family,
oh, very good. I loaned.
Yeah. I remember seeing Neil Blaney's father drive through the town of Melton at
Yeah.
the end of a lorry,
Yeah,
and
right.
there was a flag tied round his neck,
That's right.
and his face was just a mass of blood.
Oh, dear, oh. Well, I withdraw all the things I said then about it. But the thing is that I cannot understand how...
Well, that was Neil Blaney's father.
Oh, I know. Yeah, but he was sentenced to death.
Yeah.
And there were several others in Drumbo Castle under sentence of death.
Tommy Mullen, the President General Secretary of Fianna Fáil, was
he also
supposed to be next on the list
Uh-huh.
thereabouts.
I wonder why they picked out those particular four. Like
don't know.
Larkin and Enright and the others.
I don't know. Tommy Mullen, of course, was also a Southern.
Oh, yes, he was. It would appear as if they were venting their spleen on Kerry.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Never trust the God I see.
Oh, and I wouldn't trust the guard today either.
But you know, the clear advice for a unionist.
Yes, it's true. I remember Prelude to Victory. It was a little play written by Father Morris Brown.
Yeah,
Monsignor Morris Brown. He's a brother of the late Cardinal Brown.
yeah,
He's in Ballymore Eustace.
yeah.
And he wrote a little play called Prelude to Victory. And he said, when a policeman tightens his belt, he tightens his heart. When another man tightens his belt, he tightens his stomach. Well, but we're talking there about the Sligo, about Protestants. This is very interesting. And in Belfast, there were a lot of Republican Protestants.
There were also in the Glens of Antrim, there were a number of Protestants who were at least nationalists of some sort.
Oh, they were, surely.
And the way I know about that is that in 1918, when the threat of conscription was on the country,
Yes.
I belonged at that time to a little group in Dublin that was trying to get the Irish language introduced into the Church of Ireland services.
Yes.
And we had a list of people in Antrim, and we got up a petition against conscription
Yes.
to try to get Protestants to sign it.
Yes.
And we had, I suppose, about 20 from the Glens of Antrim.
Oh, you would, yeah.
Yeah. There was two women named McNaughton,
Yeah.
the Honourable Ethel and the Honourable Helen McNaughton. Their father must have been an earl, I suppose, or something like
That's
that.
right. Well, then there was Miss Dobbs.
There was Miss Dobbs, as you say.
Yes.
And there was a Major Parry and a Mrs. Parry.
I'd be interested to hear of that one.
Huh?
That'd be interesting to hear of a major doing it.
Yeah. There was also Mrs. Newman, who was a relative of, I think she was a sister of Kingston's.
That's right.
Yeah.
I often say that they boast a lot about Clongerswood and Belvedere and Catholic colleges. The only two things that colleges that can boast in Ireland is Ballymena Academy, that produced the Patriot, and the Royal School in Portora produced the Saint. John Sullivan,
John
a
Sullivan.
Jesuit. He
Yes.
was an army chaplain killed in the war.
By Portora.
Portora.
Well,
So when they talk about seminaries and colleges, I say, listen, the only colleges can boast on their roll of honour, one a real patriot and the other a saint.
the Patriot was
What, your kinsman? Ballymena Academy.
Ballymena Academy.
So whenever they start boasting, I say that. So I'm very interested because at heart, you see, I went to a school that was Protestant and Catholic.
Yeah.
And the headmaster was a man called Calvin.
Yeah.
And he was of Scottish extraction. And he probably was a patriot, an Irishman at heart. So,
Well, I'll tell you, within the past couple of weeks, I have become friends with a neighbour of mine that I hadn't known very well before, Herbie Kevlin. He's from Glasgow. And one reason why I didn't have much to do with him before was I didn't think we'd be very compatible, because I knew he belonged to one of these very extreme Protestant sects.
the wee free or something.
And he used to have religious services in a little hut
Yeah.
beside his house. And although I sent my elder son,
Yeah.
a couple of times in the neighbourhood, yes.
Yes, I know.
But about a fortnight ago, there was a threat to build houses
Yeah.
on the Cliff Walk at home,
Yes,
and to destroy an existing house.
yes.
And he lives very nearest to this. He's a builder himself. So I went to see him to enlist his help.
Yeah.
And to my surprise, I found that he was very interested in United Irishmen
Yeah.
and in everything to do with that period. And in the history of the IRA.
I see. Would that have stemmed from his love of Glencoe? You know, do you remember the Butcher Cumberland
Aye.
massacred the United Scotsmen?
Yeah.
Could be that.
It could be.
Well, there was others saying, I got you interned, and then we went off that day. How long were you kept interned?
Oh, not all that long.
We're now in 23, presumably. We're now in 1923.
Yeah. As far as I can recollect, I got out July or August.
Of 23?
Yeah. I know that Louis J. Welch made a very strong appeal on my behalf, a personal appeal to General Mulcahy.
Well, he was a DG in Donegal at that time,
Yeah.
was he?
And he showed General Mulcahy a studio portrait of me and said, no, that was the thought that the young man could really do anything wrong. I believe General Mulcahy said, bloody sure I could.
He was more precipient. Well, after all, Louis Welch hadn't very good eyesight. Do you remember he had very thick glasses?
Yeah, he had indeed.
Well,
I remember though, Louis once there was a case of Letterkenny came up. A man, he was an IRA man, and there was a revolver found in his overcoat pocket.
yeah.
And it was also transpired that he had an unlicensed bull. So the two cases came up simultaneously, and Louis Welch fined him half a crown on the head of the bull, but said that there was no real evidence that somebody else didn't put the gun in his pocket.
The quality of mercy was not strained. Well, then where we find you now, where did you go back to Melton then?
I went back to Melton, and then I went back to college.
Yes.
And on going back to college, I went to my tutor.
Yes.
Well, I wasn't at all clear how it stands to be after all this. I went to my tutor and I told him, and my tutor was a dairyman, Dr. W.A. Golliver.
Yes.
He was professor of classics, but he had a very pronounced dairy accent. He looked at me and he said, Coulter, said he, are you ashamed of what you done? I said, no, I'm not. He said, well then, just carry on.
Very good. If you had been a liar and said that, you probably wouldn't have carried on.
Exactly.
That's good. A straight shooter, a straight northerner. Well, then you started your tutorials again. You finished your tutorial.
But I discovered then that I had credit for hardly any lectures.
I know.
And my tutor fixed that up too very successfully. I don't know how the devil he did it. And then I got the idea that it was too late to start to be a doctor.
Yes.
It seemed to be very difficult to start to be a journalist.
Yes.
I went there at Times and saw the editor.
Yes.
He said, well, if you start by writing some editorials for some sub-leaders
Yes.
on matters of imperial interest.
Yes.
So I thought that I might get a job at one of the new training colleges for teachers, you know.
Yes.
And I went to a Gaelic-speaking district. I spent a month in Vidor
Yes.
and a month in Ranafastia.
Yes.
And I went up for the exam, but I didn't pull off the job. So then I did this other thing. applied for the post in Cavan Royal School.
Yes.
And I got it, and as I say, I was on my way to the station when
Feather
Pastor
O'Donnell.
O'Donnell stopped me.
Well,
And I started helping him to run and public.
yes.
And very soon I found there was in the thick of things again, that it was on the Army Council to my great establishment.
Yes.
So there was this business of being a fall breaking off.
Yes, that's right.
Well, I was sharing a flat with, well, first of all, I was sharing, first of all, I lived with Seamus McCall in a house in Rasgar with such noted rebels as Helena Maloney, Countess Markowitz,
Maud Gowan.
no, she wasn't there, but it was Helena Maloney, Countess Markowitz, Dorothy McCarter,
Yes.
and Miss Broderick from Kerry.
Yes. Well,
And then there was this business about Peter Fall. They decided to, they broke with Sinn Féin and
Yeah.
decided they'd go in if they couldn't have to take the oath.
yes.
And Seamus McCall was very much in favour of that.
Yes.
But he and I decided to take a flat in town, took a flat in. And then definitely went a step further. Well, I, by this time, was on the council, and I was helping Father with the public. And Seamus McCall, to my great astonishment, he applied for and got the editorship of the Garda Review of all places.
Very good.
Well, actually, I found this a great advantage.
Yes.
I didn't realize all the advantages for a couple of years, but the time came when any time the special branch came round looking for me, I was down in the dressmaker's establishment on the next floor, and Seamus McCall was busy editing the Garda Review.
Well, there was that subtle. Very good.
And that didn't fail me until quite a long time afterwards. I think it was 1929.
It was after 29.
Was it after 29?
That's correct.
Frank Ryan succeeded Father O'Donnell anyhow.
Yeah. That'd be getting on towards the
And whether
Spanish
that,
Civil War, wouldn't it?
What?
It'd be getting on towards the Spanish Civil War.
No, it's not as late as that. No, we're
No.
not.
That was 36.
Yeah. No,
But
we're not at 1930 yet, I don't
oh,
think.
you're not. You spoke there about Fianna Fáil breaking with Sinn Féin,
Yeah.
and that would have been about 1930, wouldn't it?
Yeah, also the earlier in 1930.
Probably 27.
It was about 27.
That's right. Sorry.
Yeah, it was about
Well,
20.
it saved you. Your companion as editor saved you until about 1929. You see.
Yeah, they got very troublesome then. They started arresting me in the street, you see, anytime they'd see me.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd just bring me along and keep me until the next day
Yes.
and let me out and arrest me again about a mile from the bridal.
Yes.
So eventually I got very fed up with this.
Naturally.
And one day I was just coming out of the bridewell, and I think myself will be lifted again in a minute, when a taxi drew up beside me, and the door opened, and a man pulled me in with Daily Express special correspondent, and he drove off with me. I was able to give him an exclusive interview.
Yes.
So they never got me again for a long, long time after that.
You were on the run then.
I went out to a cottage on the Dublin Hills near the Gilmores,
Yes.
And I used to spend 4 days out at the cottage, and 3 days in at the East Wall Road, disguised as a discharged sailor with Frank Ryan.
Were you garbed as such?
Huh?
Were you garbed as a dis-
I was just dressed in very rough clothes, you see.
I see, well,
But I had all my papers and everything.
yes.
And I didn't go about.
No,
I
no.
just made the place and took them and stayed there for 3 days and nights until we had an issue of the paper ready.
Is that so? Yes. Well, it was published on the East Wall, was it?
No, it was published by Oscar Trainer.
But printed where?
Printed by Oscar Trainer.
Oh, it was, yes.
In the Board of Press.
Well, then he became Fianna Fáil,
He did, but he helped us for a very long time.
even as Fianna Fáil.
Even as being a Fáil, he helped us. In fact, he and a couple of others, he and Captain Robinson, both helped us
Yes.
right along. Captain Robinson trained the IRA years after he was a Fianna Fáil senator.
Is that so? Yes.
Oscar Trainer was always ready to print anything.
I see, yes. Well, then that went on until about,
Well, then the Irish press started.
yes.
The Fianna Fáil came into power, and the Irish press started. And I got a job in the Irish press.
You did?
I did.
Uh-huh.
I was still on the Army Council.
Yes.
And as a matter of fact, in the Irish press, even after I had quarreled with the IRA, I used to send the Northern Scottish up in Douglas, dispatch them off with the Irish press in the van for Belfast.
Is that right?
Until the dispatch manager found it out. Nearly 40, he was very much annoyed about it. But he doesn't know that the van might be burned or something.
Yes, I know.
But I stayed on the Army Council until the time that a mob known as the Animal Gang attacked, they attacked Connolly House, the headquarters of the Communists.
I see.
Well, I actually didn't have anything to do with the Communists myself,
Yes.
but there was a niece of Mrs. Tynan Hinkson,
Yes.
who was involved with the Communists. And she was in Connolly House, and the mob set it on fire.
Yes.
And Charlie Gilmore heard of this,
Yes.
and he rushed to the place with a revolver,
Yes.
and he got inside and he went to the top, and he fired out on the crowd.
Yes.
And meanwhile, I had left the Irish press and come up
Yes.
with an arts plant,
Yes.
and to my astonishment, the crowd who were attacking the place, for some reason, took it in their heads that I was a plainclothes guard,
Yes. Yes.
and they moved it off very quick.
I see, yeah.
Well, the next day, George Gilmore was beaten up in Corley's Green.
Yes.
And the day after that, Charlie and George were both court-martialed and expelled by the IRA.
Yes.
And Harry Gilmore resigned in protest.
I see.
And I resigned in protest.
I know.
And
And protest against the animal gang.
no, against the Gilmores being expelled.
Oh, I see, yes.
I
Where were they expelled then?
Hmm?
Why did they
They
expel them?
expelled them for taking firearms
Oh, I see.
from the dump and using them without
Our permission.
yeah.
I see. Well, that would be about 19 what?
That must have been about 1934, I would say,
I see, yeah.
or 5. It was immediately before the Republican Congress.
I see, yeah.
The Republican Congress came off then, and I was interested in it, and my wife and I acted as hosts to 2 bus loads of Belfast Protestants from the Shankill who
Very
came
good.
down to take part in the Congress.
Just let me ask you, what was your wife's maiden name?
Sybil.
Sybil.
Sybil, yeah.
Where was she a native of? Dublin.
She was born at Lenagiri,
Yes.
but her father was Scottish and her mother was from Saintfield.
I see. Very good. A good strain on you. And your sons will have a good strain. You have 2 sons, have you?
Yeah.
Niall and what else? Niall. What's your son's name? Niall
And Brian.
and Brian. And that's the only 2 children.
We daughter in America, Barbara.
Very good. Well, then the Congress, Republican Congress, was held. And
Well, it was held, and there was a split in it, as you know, over the Workers' Republic.
yeah, that's right.
It was a very civil sort of thing.
Yes.
But Michael Price left the Congress over
Yes.
and said he joined the Labour Party and
Yes.
said he was reviving it. This was normal. And he called a parade, and Billy Kelly, who was the OC of the South Dublin Battalion of the IRA,
Yeah.
he claimed to have the majority of his men with him in
Yeah.
joining
Yeah.
this new formation.
Yeah.
And we had a couple of very impressive parades.
Yes.
And then Bill O'Brien, in some mysterious way, disbanded us.
I see.
Well, I went to Bodentown
Yes.
following year, and I marched with the IRA again.
Yes, I know.
And the 2 bus loads came down to Belfast
Yeah.
in Shankill, and Frank Traynor of the Kildare,
Yeah.
Kildare OC of the IRA wouldn't let them march in the procession.
Oh, dear.
So the Workers' Union of Ireland band fell out,
Yes.
and a number of us fell out, and we marched. Frank Traynor of the Kildare,
Yeah.
Kildare OC of the IRA wouldn't let them march in the procession.
Oh, dear.
So the Workers' Union of Ireland band fell out,
Yes.
and a number of us fell out, and we marched with them and held a separate.
You did right.
convention. But that's the last time I ever heard anything from the
Yeah.
Workers'. And with this city, of course,
Well,
there was about 50 of them.
Aye, which would have been the nucleus of a great force later
It
on,
would, yeah.
and might have stopped all this sectarianism.
Aye. They stayed out at I was living out at Rathfarnham at the time. They stayed out at us. We got straw and medicine down in our houses, and they were very nice, and my wife got on very well with them.
Dear, that's one of the might have been.
Yeah.
And that's why, as you said there one time, that's a pity that there's officials and professionals and all these things happening, because there might have been some sort of a coalition between Republicans and the UDF.
Yeah, well, that is the thing.
There could have been.
And now I'm very scared that Bolton and some of them will start a new kind of
Oh, I
led
know.
Republican Party and take people out of fear of all that if they're going to do anything ought to join some real Republican movement.
But will there be ever a real Republican in the 2620s? There couldn't be. They have so submerged their republicanism. They kept it trammeled in the brackets of Republic, and he kept the bracket around it so tight. But I don't admire Kevin Boland because I did think his father should have been a Scooter Republican at that time and said, no, we sentence these people to life.
Yeah, yeah.
And this is where we come in when we start talking about the abolition of capital punishment. It should be abolished because of the mistakes that can be made. And on that optimistic note, we end.
he made Jerry Moulton made himself so unpopular that time. It got such odium attached
Yeah.
that he was retired from
Yes, from the cabinet.
and Oscar Traynor was
Yeah.
given the job.
I know, yeah.
But Oscar Traynor, I think, was an honest man according to his life.
Yes, I see. It's very difficult to be honest
Yeah,
when you're in a cabinet.
it is, no doubt.
I know. No, it's difficult whenever you get honors
Yeah,
in any particular thing.
yeah.
You see, again, there's the fear of the loss of prestige and so on like that. The ordinary humdrum person,
Yeah.
after all, I suppose the happiest man in the world is the man who becomes a tramp by volition. He doesn't know he doesn't do anything to anyone. I mean, he's happier than the richest multimillionaire.
Did you, by the way, read Politicians by accident?
No, but I always said that he was a politician by
I
accident.
was wondering because it's the title of a book, an Irish press a reporter called Liam Skinner wrote one time.
No, I know I didn't, but I remember Moira Comerford telling me that De Valera is in politics largely because Mrs. Humphrey told him to go on for Clare. He came back from Lincoln or from
Yes.
wherever he was on 10 first, and he was going to go back to Blackrock and teach mathematics. And then she made him the politician to say, go on down there, you're the last surviving commandant, and fight the Clare election, which he won. He's a politician by accident, and he never was a soldier by design. We'll leave it at that now, because I'll be back again for church at 8 o'clock.
Yeah, yeah. Look, now it's me.
Well, regretfully, I had to break off that conversation with Mr. Coulter, and I left him back where I got him in a farmhouse outside Monaghan. I think it'll be on the Glass Lough Road. At any rate, his son is married to a daughter of the farm owner there, and that's where they were today. Mr. Coulter had rung me up from Monaghan, and then by appointment, I met him in the Diamond or Square in Monaghan, and his son was there in the car, and I said I'd bring him here. And then the son vouchsafed to show us where we would return to when we would come back from Knocknacloy. This I did. I'm back now again here in Knocknacloy. It was in time for everything. And I'm very pleased indeed to have had that long and very interesting conversation with a very interesting man. I didn't really know what he looked like, nor did he know what I looked like the first time I ever had any contact with him was in an article he wrote in the Irish Times, and I wrote to congratulate him. He was speaking about reminiscences of his youth in 5 Mile Town, and asked him if he was ever in these parts to give me a call. I saw that he was going to be a speaker at the People's Democracy Anti-Expo Ulster 71. And I sent him a card. He didn't get it until he came back from Belfast, but he came back this way north today with his son, and I had the honour indeed of talking with him for about 2 hours. I promised to make a copy of this tape and send it to his son, who has a tape recorder, but I'll have to write first and ask the son what make a tape recorder.